that it's going on right here in your neighborhood. And I remember talking to a church congregation in Webster Groves, and somebody said, but it doesn't happen here. And I go, Hickson Middle School, right down the street. Oh, yes. I just met a kid from there who has been involved.
And you know what you should have told them, the congregation?
What?
Get your ass out the building. Quit having church in the building and have church in these streets.
Langford Cunningham is really an inspiration.
Mr. Langford Cunningham.
Blind City, the podcast. It's headed up by a guy named Langford Cunningham. He had to lose his sight to find his vision.
Welcome to Blind City, the podcast. I'm your host, Langford Cunningham. We are the therapy for these streets.
Everybody got their ops, everybody got their enemies, but for real, now you don't even got to worry about your enemy. It be, the closest motherfuckers around you.
No, this is real. We getting shot by police. We getting stereotyped.
We didn't get a proper investigation. Well, definitely, I think it's a bunch of bullshit.
Your car got shot up, right?
Yeah, he struck the bullet.
Yeah, you from the hood.
They just passed a law where you can give a kid a gun without the parent's permission.
Wait a minute. They can do what? We got people in power that's not really for the people. They think the people work for them. You work for the people.
We got to talk about the disparities in our community.
North side look like a bomb didn't hit it.
Hey y'all, this is Tashara Jones, Mayor of the City of St. Louis, and I listen to Blind City, the podcast.
If you found this content helpful, please share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Blind City, the podcast. You can find us on all social media platforms.
BlindCityThePodcast.com. BlindCityThePodcast.com. But we have a very critical show tonight. We're going to talk about these slave hunters throughout these communities, kidnapping these children, the human trafficking pipeline. Blind City, the podcast, will stand on the front lines and create awareness and information to our community. And right now, I have a human trafficking survivor, and she's going to read a poem before we start the show. Kelsey, please.
Let's talk about prostitution, and let's put it all on the table. Let's talk about you escorts that hate that dirty label. You're a prostitute, baby. It is what it is. But that's okay. It's the life that we live. Yes, I said we. I'm with all that, too. I've been shopping with John and copped the new truth. I've got my toes done by Bill and out to eat with Tom, and yes, flights booked by Brad. But I also grew up with no protection from my dad. I got caught lacking on the strips trying to flip one last trick so I didn't have to go home to a very angry pimp. I've had to run real fast through the stratosphere a lot to duck and dodge that crooked cop. I've walked Slauson and Inglewood, the Las Vegas Strip too. Had to take that $60 date when I had no money for a room.
BlindCityThePodcast.com. ABC 30 TV. And starting in February, we will be on ABC 17, Columbia, Missouri, MIZZOU. We have a special show tonight, and we're going to get right to it. I just have a couple of guests just pulled up to the city, and at the same time, they trying to save the city. So let me introduce you to my guests. To my right is a beautiful young lady that we're going to talk and find out more about during the show. Her name is Kelsey. How you doing, Kelsey?
I'm okay.
Thank you for pulling up to the city.
Pleasure to be here.
That's great. My next guest, well, she's the doctor. I'm not talking about Dr. J that play basketball. But this woman right here, she is a doctor. She's a former principal. She's an activist. And she might even be running for mayor against Tashara Jones.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Dr. Pam Stansfield, how you doing?
I'm doing great today. Nice to be here.
Thank you for pulling up to the city.
You're certainly welcome.
And you brought a friend with you.
I sure did.
And she's doing miracles for the city. Mm-hmm. She's an activist, too.
She's got quite a story.
She's a freedom fighter. Dee Dee, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for letting us come on today and share.
Oh, thank you for pulling up to the city. And we're going to stop right there for a moment before I go to my next guest. Tell the people the name of your organization, Dee Dee.
It's the Covering House, and we help youth who have been sexually exploited or sexually trafficked in the United States.
Okay, we're going to come right back to it, inform the people.
Yep.
And my next guest is a beautiful young lady, and she's coming to a satellite in Zoom. Jess, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, thank you for pulling up to the city.
You're welcome.
So let's get right to it, ladies. And I'm the only gentleman at the table. I feel good. Blind man is sexy, ladies, isn't it? Dee Dee, at the Covering House, we're dealing with this sex trafficking through our city.
Yeah.
How long have your organization been around? How long have you been fighting this?
Since 2009. And it started once I watched a documentary on trafficking, and I have two daughters, and I decided that if this is something that's happening, we need to do something about it. So we've been around since then.
And do you think the city is doing enough to fight it?
You know, I think there's always more can be done. We used to have some designated law enforcement within the St. Louis city that we no longer have designated law enforcement that focuses specifically on trafficking.
Dr. Pam Stansfield, what is your, you also been fighting this epidemic as well, and you have your hands in so many other things too as well. But how do you feel about the sex trafficking coming through our city?
I'm blown away by it. And it's something that, I guess I'm like most people. Years ago, you'd read an article about it and you'd think, oh, that's terrible. And then you'd go about your day. And once I learned about the Covering House, Missouri is number 8 in the nation for sex trafficking. St. Louis is one of the top 20 cities in the nation for sex trafficking. And because I volunteer at the Juvenile Detention Center and had access to lots of kids, and we're talking girls and boys, I always made sure I mentioned my work with the Covering House so that if that was part of their story, they knew that there was a resource out there for them. But the stories are heartrending, and we got to do something. We've got to make a difference. And so we serve girls from all over the St. Louis area, St. Charles County, St. Louis County, Illinois. We even have girls who come to us from other states. We've actually had an international placement. We are able to provide therapy, counseling, whatever they need. It's a beautiful location. We were very, very blessed. Someone gave us this property, 17 acres and a 15,000 square foot building. The building is old.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
The person that gave it to you, was it a pastor?
It was the family of a Catholic nun and the Archdiocese of St. Louis.
So it wasn't a pastor from the hood?
No, unfortunately not a pastor from the hood.
That's what I thought. I know they ain't giving up nothing. But I have 2 young ladies here. One has a mask on to protect her. She was part of sex trafficking, and she's going to speak with us, and whatever she chooses to speak about, it's all right with me. So I will ask the listening audience, please, to be patient. Please open your ears and listen, because that's what we got to do with our young people. We got to listen as adults. We don't listen. That's why we have problems in our community with our youth. We got to listen. So, Kelsey, how long were you in the sex trafficking?
I guess it started when I was 15.
Okay. And how old are you now?
I'm 22.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it officially started when I was 15. And then I was dealing with, I dealt with a few different
individuals. Okay. Were they pimps?
Yeah.
So they were pimps. Were they African American?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
So, yeah, during that time, I probably dealt with 3 different ones, but there was one main one. And at the time, I think that I didn't realize that I was being trafficked. I kind of felt he was though he was twice my age, or all of them were twice my age, I felt like they were like, you know, actually interested in me, or like, you know, my boyfriend or whatever. I was young and I was dumb.
No, you weren't dumb. Don't say that. You weren't dumb. You're just naive. You weren't dumb. You just were young. You didn't know, and you put your trust in an individual who you really thought had your back. So that's common. That happens to a lot of people in the community.
Right. This is true. This is true. So then, like, I think I was out for like a year maybe, until eventually I was caught in a sting. And I was arrested for prostitution. And that's whenever my like juvenile and DYS journey started. And I think that is like one of the main things that I like feel like I want to focus on with like sex trafficking, is that I was like, I don't know if I was still 15 or if I was 16. I believe I was 15 though. And I was charged with prostitution, and I feel like
that's wrong.
To me, that's very wrong.
Let's stop right there, please. Yeah. So, Dee Dee, you say that's wrong. Why did you say that's wrong?
Because on a federal law, anybody under the age of 18 is a victim of trafficking, even if they happen to be, maybe they're out on the streets on their own free will. They've, you know, whether they've engaged with someone, they are a minor. And legally, they shouldn't, on a federal level, legally, they should be considered a victim. There was a time that, if I'm going to be honest, the hierarchy of people being arrested were always going to be the girls first, the pimps will be second, and the Johns will be the last ones.
The tricks. We call them tricks.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so they'll be the last ones to get arrested. But she should never have been arrested, no. Absolutely.
No doubt about it. I have another guest also who went through the sex trafficking trade, and she's doing fine right now. Jess, how you doing?
I'm good.
I know you've been listening. Is your story similar to Kelsey's?
Mine is different. I went through more so exploitation. So I had a boyfriend of 2 years, and he would ask me to do things. And this started around when I was 14. Up until around 16, he would ask me to do things. And if I said no, he would threaten his life, or he would just make threats or manipulate me to say yes. And he would take videos and pictures of me. And whenever I broke up with him and I had told my parents about the allegations I had made towards him, he had sent out all the videos and stuff. And I had multiple guys in my DMs. And I had a lot of harassments and just guys showing up to my house, and it was getting kind of crazy.
It's kind of like sabotage.
That's common too.
And I'm also saying as well, you know, we have all these politicians out here, man. And we're going to go to Dee Dee after this to find out what politicians are pushing an agenda for sex trafficking, human trafficking throughout our region. But it just seemed to me, the politicians in Capitol Hill, man, they so bickering against each other, pointing fingers at each other. And the criminals are working together, creating enterprises through America. So, Dee Dee and Dr. Pam Stansfield, do you think politicians should have a role in this?
Absolutely. I think politicians should have a role.
I mean, they ask you for your vote.
I think what I've learned over the course of many years is that government moves at a glacier pace sometimes, so it takes a long time to get laws enacted. I will say this, and I can only speak for those who have actually stepped up and helped us at the Covering House. On a federal level, Ann Wagner has taken us on and kind of supported us through the years. And on a local, state level, the Mosleys, Angela and Jay Mosley, have stepped up and really supported us. So I think there's always more that can be done because this is, passionate, something I'm very passionate about to help these kids. But I also have learned that things move slowly on a government scale, seems like.
Dr. Pam Stansfield, so how do you feel when you hear these stories?
I think Dee Dee and I both right now, because we have to be, we can remove kind of that emotional component when we're doing something like this and we're talking. But when we really think about an individual, the tears come. I mean, it's just heartbreaking that it's going on right here in your neighborhood. And I remember talking to a church congregation in Webster Groves, and somebody said, but it doesn't happen here. And I go, Hickson Middle School, right down the street. Oh, yes. I just met a kid from there who has been involved.
And you know what you should have told them, the congregation?
What?
Get your ass out the building. Quit having church in the building and have church in these streets like Jesus did. See, that's the problem. That's the problem. Kelsey, did you go through the strip clubs?
I did.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. I know about the strip clubs. Yeah, I was an advocate. I saw a lot of girls in there that shouldn't been in there. Yeah, when I was lost in my days. But we're going to go to a break, and we're going to come right back. We're going to talk more with Jess, and we're going to try to find out some solutions. But let me tell this to people. We're recording this episode on Dr. King's birthday. And we got a lot of celebrations for Dr. King in these communities. And his street looks like a damn crackhead street. But you're up in the church singing, but you can't fix this damn street up. We just need more people in our community to step up. Some of these churches, these pastors can use some of these churches in our community as rehabilitation centers as well to help rescue these girls. I mean, we just gotta quit standing around and start standing down on the front lines in our community. We will be right back after these messages, but people, don't fall asleep. You got to stay woke in these streets. BlindCityThePodcast.com.
What's up, BlindCityThePodcast.com. It's your girl, Michaela McGee, Miss Missouri, USA. When I'm just chilling, hanging out, I love to listen to BlindCityThePodcast.com. They bring all of the real. We talk about community, real issues going on affecting real people. Make sure that you guys are listening to BlindCityThePodcast.com.
BlindCityThePodcast.com. Very important episode. I need everybody to pay attention in TV land. And please listen if you have daughters and young children in the house, sons. You may think this has nothing to do with you until it come to your doorstep. So we all have to pay attention. And the reason I'm mad, we have over 300 girls missing out of Berkeley, Missouri since 2002. But we just sitting around thinking it has nothing to do with us. That's why the community is in the shape it's in. Call the chief of police over at Berkeley. I asked him to come on to the show. Do you see him? Look around. This is what I'm talking about. St. Louis County, you need to take over that district, Berkeley, Missouri. They ain't got nothing but 2 police cars any damn way. They ain't stopping no crime through that city. So, Dee Dee, you deal with this.
I do. We do.
I'm shaking right now because I'm very pissed.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with this?
You know, different ways and different levels. At the end of the day, most of the kids that we deal with are just teenage girls, all just wanting to be accepted and loved and find a place where they can feel safe. And that's what we try to provide, as well as try to reimburse childhood. A lot of these kids have had their childhood stripped from them.
Jess, what trauma have you dealt with going through this, dealing with sex trafficking?
So when I first experienced it, it was more like a survival mode. So like the surviving it wasn't as bad, but it's the healing. So as soon as I got out of that and I started being in group homes, I was triggered by almost everything. So like even someone wearing like a certain shirt would trigger me into my PTSD, and I would just like start having panic attacks. And I would have them so many throughout the day. And then I would have all these nightmares. And then I would feel the pressure to just try to find people to love me, to fill a void. And so that's why I've relied so heavily on my faith, because in the Bible it says God will never leave you nor forsake you. And because of my trauma, I'm like, wow, like men leave me, they forsake me, but God has always stayed. And in my marriage, like it's still hard because my husband's like, you've been through so much that sometimes you find these things in me when it's not even in there. So it affects marriage. It affects everyday life. It affects me as a mother because I don't ever want to make my daughter feel like she's less than, so she has to go to someone else to feel something. So it affects me, and it feels like it haunts me, but I have to cling on to my faith and the things that I've learned through the Covering House in order to really keep me centered, because it's a day-to-day struggle.
Kelsey, the same. What trauma you've been dealing with?
I think that I'm still really in the midst of it, if I'm being completely honest. I think that I have a lot of like, I guess, I don't know a good word for it. I would say like brainwashing that I have to like backtrack. So, honestly, like prostitution, sex trafficking, sex work in general, stripping, whatever the case may be. It's been a norm to me for like a really long time. And in some ways, do I see the wrong in it? Absolutely. But sometimes it's hard for me too, because I've been like, this is just what I'm used to. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm struggling with right now is just, figuring out where I stand.
Jess.
What's up?
Talk more. I want you to expound more. Where do you think, through your experience, you can help shed light to other children in these communities? What advice could you give them? What can you tell them to look out for? Things that you went through.
So something I went through was just being blamed by my family, and I lost so many friends because of what I went through. And then my parents just kind of like put me into group homes, and it was one after another. So to the girls and boys that have gone through that, it is not your fault. Regardless of who says what, your mama, your daddy, all your friends, it is not your fault for what you went through. And you are loved by God. There is a God that loves you, and he accepts you for what you've been through, and he wants to be there for you and love you.
That's beautiful. That's the real miracle, Jess. That's what God has done for you and Kelsey. He's
Amen.
helping you find rehabilitation in your lives and using your experience to help others. That's why you are here today. It is your calling. And this is what I'm talking about. And I got to keep going back to the church because they get them people up and they're falling out talking about they saw the Holy Ghost. But this is the real Holy Ghost that's working today. This is the real Holy Ghost that's in the streets saving lives. They just ain't in the church running around, jumping up and down and throwing money in the basket, and you take it and put it into the damn white banks that don't even put back into the communities. Who you think you fooling? But that's what they did to Moses, the children of Israel. They turned on him. Yeah, turn on me. We'll be right back after these messages. BlindCityPodcast.com.
Hello, you guys. This is your girl, Danielle. You guys need to watch, listen, tune in, follow, subscribe, all of the above. Blind City Podcast on ABC 30, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. Find them, watch them, listen, tune in. If you're not, you should.
BlindCityPodcast.com. Slave hunters through the gateway city. Slave hunters. That's what you better call them. That's what they doing in our community. We have two beautiful women, young women inside the city telling their stories, what they went through. And now they're here to share their story to help other young women and young boys to inform them what's out there in these streets. And I applaud you two ladies. I really do. Stepping up. Stepping up. You're beautiful individuals. You're beautiful human beings for what you're doing. Jess, before we depart, thank you for pulling up to the city. I want you to look into that camera because I can't look into it. And I want you to talk to the people in these communities and these politicians and these preachers, these so-called leaders of the community. And I want you to tell them how you personally feel and what changes need to be made or what input they can make to help you out to get the word out to save more lives.
So I'm actually very connected with a church here in Columbia, and I think it is my job to more so be bold and courageous to share my story, because I'll be honest, it is very hard for me to share my story up until literally recently, to even say like, hey, I was sexually abused, I was exploited, because it's embarrassing for me. So for me, it is important for me to have courage and to be bold to even talk about these conversations, because it's not easy being a survivor of these kind of situations. So for me, I need to be bold, but in order for the community to really change and want to change, you need to empathize with the survivor of these situations and understand that this is very prevalent. And the reason why a lot of people aren't hearing about it is because it's so hard for the survivor to talk about. It is crippling to their emotional state of being, at least for mine. So to have the courage to speak about it is very hard. And once we can do that, it would be easier for more people to understand the depth of this situation.
Blind City, the podcast. That's what we do. Create information and awareness to our community. And we have slave hunters among us in these communities who are kidnapping these children's dreams. But let me tell them this, to your pimps, you cannot steal their soul. That's one thing you cannot do. And I applaud these two young ladies, Jess and Kelsey, for coming on this show tonight and standing on the front line and not just standing around to give their message out to the people. See, you couldn't steal their soul. You couldn't do it. And that's why you can't win. If these communities can come together and we all can work together and stop these terrible people that are stealing the children from our communities. And to the people of these communities, let me tell you this. Slave hunters live amongst us, and they are stealing our children out of these communities. And we need to be aware. If you see anything suspicious in your backyard, in your surroundings, in your neighborhoods, go to blindcitypodcast.com and you will see the crisis numbers. And please dial that number. If you feel like you're going to commit suicide, to my human trafficking survivors, if you need help, please dial 988 alert as well. But we as a community, we got to get our village back. We're working as individuals and we're not working together. And I've been telling you this from the start. We're more stronger together than we are apart. blindcitypodcast.com.
If you found this content helpful, please share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Blind City, the podcast. You can find us on all social media platforms.